31. Today we're going to be talking about foreign intervention, foreign affairs, foreign policies that we get involved in. So when America is getting involved in other countries' affairs, there's 4 goals and 6 roles that we play that define the actions that we take as a country. So one of those goals is national security. That means dealing with terrorist threats, both at home and abroad. Has to do with national secrets. It has to do with using the military as necessary. And this involves a number of departments and agencies that we've talked about in the past. And the roles that define this territory, this area, is defense and intelligence. So defending ourselves with security, our physical safety, and gathering intelligence so we know if that security is threatened and how best to defend it. Then another goal we have is world peace, right? Sounds kind of huge. Well, maybe whether or not you believe true world peace is possible or not, America definitely gets involved in other countries that are fighting with each other, though not with us, and we try to be a mediator, and in some cases an arbitrator. And that fulfills our roles. One of the roles that we fulfill is that of alliances. We're making alliances with other countries. We're making friendships so that we can hopefully avoid wars through these friendships and through these relationships. And that's one reason why we get involved in other countries' affairs, is if we can build up a good reputation, then we can help them solve their own conflicts, which will reduce the chance of war that we might get pulled into down the road. Trade. One of the goals that we have is trade. In the role of trying to measure trade to see how much is going on and how good that is for us. Do we need more? Do we need less? To make sure we protect interests at home while also ensuring and protecting American interests abroad. It can also talk about trade in the form of foreign aid, like we're helping other countries. We're either giving them loans or just giving them food or money or medical supplies. So trade is one of the goals that American policy tries to achieve. And finally, human rights and democracy. We try to make sure that democracy and human rights have a chance to be defended and have a chance to spread through the rest of the world. We have a lot of that here in America, but we want to make sure other countries, like China, which is struggling with both issues, we're trying to help them achieve those goals as well. So that's one of our goals of foreign policy, and that's done through diplomacy. Diplomacy plays a major role in trying to have peaceful relationships with countries that don't get along so well with us. So it's not about an alliance, so that would be a great outcome of turning an enemy into a friend. But if we have someone that's opposed to us and not in great terms with us, like China, maintain diplomacy so that even though we're disagreeing on things, we don't break out into war. All right, executive branch's influence. It's minimized to just 4 members. We've got the president. He's obviously the head of the executive branch and therefore has a lot of impact on foreign policy. There's the Department of State, the Department of Defense, and the National Security Council. The National Security Council includes the Vice President, the President, Secretary of State. This photo is a photo of when the President was finally able to send in the team to kill Osama bin Laden. So at the time, it was Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense. So those are the 4. Outside of that, nobody really has a lot of influence over foreign policy other than Congress, which has to confirm treaties and war declarations. Private influence. How does the private sector affect foreign policy? So the people who are not elected to office. Well, there's four groups that do that. One is business groups like Google. Google had to make a hard decision at one point in China because the only way China would allow Google to operate on their servers in their country was if they allowed China to monitor any kind of communication, emails, videos posted, anything by its people, because they try to check their people and censor anything that they don't like, anything that's against the government. And Google had to pull out. I mean, they didn't have to, but they chose to, because they said, even though we can make a lot of money in China, it's not worth it if we have to be a part of this. Labor groups. So collective bargaining. If enough labor unions can get quite huge, more than just a single company. And labor groups don't want competition from foreign workers. We've had laws that have limited how many people from different countries can come into our country for no other reason than reducing competition. So like at one point we had brought a lot of Chinese workers into America to help build like railroads and stuff that we didn't have at the time. But once those railroads were built, labor unions fought really hard to kick them out of our country, because once the railroads are done, they were looking for work other places, and labor unions were not interested in that. They didn't want to have to share with the Chinese, even though they were here legally too. Just to clarify, many political groups. So groups that are involved in politics, but they're not elected officials. So that's private influence. So a lot of groups, like the immigration controversy going on right now, but how to handle immigration, which is, as you might have figured out, not necessarily a new issue. It's just focused on a different group than in the past. There's a lot of groups that are trying to fight for immigrants here in America, and there's a lot of groups that are trying to fight against. And those groups, if they're large enough and have enough money, will impact decisions made by the executive branch. And then finally, just plain individuals, especially wealthy individuals, singers and actors and stuff who speak out. People like the Beastie Boys and Bono, trying to get involved with world affairs and try to help people in other countries by giving voice, giving attention to things that are important to them, issues that are important to them. But even with all that, the country has done some things that we are not proud of, especially when it comes to war. Technically, Congress is supposed to approve any and all war, but presidents began to abuse this and avoid it by sending troops and sending soldiers into battle without actually calling it a war, and therefore found a loophole where they don't have to ask Congress by just sending troops and not calling it a war. And that's the Vietnam War was the last war that we engaged that was like that. And after people were so upset about how long that war was going on for what seemed like no purpose, and a lot of people dying, that after in 1973 the War Powers Act was passed that said from now on the president can send troops, as fast as he wants and immediately without asking for approval for a maximum of 60 days. So the president still has the ability to defend our country if we get attacked. He doesn't have to run to Congress and ask for approval just to send soldiers to defend ourselves or to attack an enemy that's threatening us. But 60 days, that's 2 months. By 2 months, we're talking about a full-scale war now, and we want to make sure the accountability of the president stays in the hands of Congress. So Congress can hold the president accountable by saying, you can have it for 60 days, you can defend the country for 60 days. After that, we're talking about a war here, and we need to vote on whether or not this is a war that makes sense or if we need to cut it out. That's it. Don't forget the quiz. You want to make sure, if you haven't done so already, do the textbook assignment, page 17 to 25. Textbook, and I'll see you in class. Thank you.